Step into the exciting, pulse-pounding world of being a risk assessment data processor for Cerebro Inc. as you take on the night shift, examining the case files sent to you by a supervisor who you only communicate with via intercom. As you pore over the details of the case, you'll uncover a sinister plot at the heart of the company's past, one that they'd very much like to be kept buried. If there was a word I could use to sum up things too ugly, it's basic. Visually, there's a desk with some crap on it and a nice nighttime cityscape to look at. Other than that, the whole game is confined to the office desk. As the game is set in 1986, it's got a nice retro feel to the computer and the radio. It reminds me a lot of Stories Untold, another game you should definitely check out if you enjoyed this. The documents you examined are a nice mixture of handwritten notes, typed redacted reports and photographs which are unsettling at times and overall really add to the gradually building tension in the game.
Hey, you awake in there? I know. The transition to the night shift can be tough, but I'm sure you'll adjust in time. Everyone does. Or we hire another. Listen. We're going to work through a new stack of incident files and see how the updated software works. R&D says they've rooted out the bugs in the query system, so the data you input should better model past incidents. We'll see, I guess. I'll review each report as it comes through. You go ahead and get logged in, then begin processing the first file. The night courier dropped off 5, but don't rush. Remember, accuracy is extremely important if we're to prevent incidents of a similar nature. Okay, I'll leave you.
Sound plays a large role in setting up the atmosphere because, let's face it, there's not a whole lot else going on that'll help. You've 2 radio stations to listen to for music and another for a solution to a particular problem, and that's pretty much it as far as the music goes. Good thing the 2 stations are quite well done, mixing the ambient music in with the usual banal radio announcements and adverts. What's not well done is the lack of variety in them. Over the course of even an hour-long playthrough, you'll hear one of the DJ's stories about her car breaking down around 7 fucking times. But the radio does fade into the background nicely and it doesn't intrude in the gameplay. There's not much of a storyline in Things Too Ugly, in part because it's so short, and in part because there's so much left unsaid. As such, I'm going to have to try quite hard not to state any spoilers because it's so easy to ruin whole tracts of the story with just a few stray lines. The story has a lot of vague inferences, shadowy motives and hidden agendas, and these all work against one another to leave the game a bit of a hollow experience. You aren't left with much to mull over after the game ends, and what is left could really do with some additional texture. I'm not saying that everything needs to be spelled out, but there's quite a lot that you're totally in the dark about. For stories to have as much, if not more, of the narrative left to the player's imagination, then you have to leave enough explanation in for that imagination to gain traction on. Confusion and bafflement do not inspire any further thinking. The creepiness that progresses through the cases builds nicely, a little too quickly, and could have done with a few more to really nail it. The denouement is both anticlimactic and yet perfectly fitting with the rest of the game due to its brief nature and lack of any explanation to anything that's going on. The gameplay is, as has been stated before, it's pretty basic. You use the arrow keys to look around and you use a mouse and keyboard to examine the files and type in the answers. The puzzles are a bit more complex than your usual video game standard, but they're not anything too taxing. The solutions are made easier to determine as the form of the answers take is provided to you. For example, a question asking about how to extract an object using a wave generator will ask the verb, the waveform, and the frequency stated in the report. A big decision on the gameplay side is the lack of any saving. You fire up things too ugly, you have to finish it, or you're going to have to redo the whole thing at a later date. For me, this mechanism didn't ruin much though, because the game is so short and there's no replay value at all. There would be no need to sit through this whole thing again after you're done. In conclusion, it's difficult to come to any sort of conclusion on a game that's this short. It's at most a 2-hour playthrough. I've heard that it's meant to be a sort of 2 to 3 to 5 hour experience, but I could not imagine anyone spending 5 hours on what little content is here. That said, the little content that is here is really good and definitely left me wanting more. But the unsatisfying ending somewhat spoils what could have been a nice, short, really creepy adventure.